Hello, everybody. Super excited for today's topic, Black Wealth and Black Excellence. I'm Shehara Wooten, and we've got Jeff Shafer here too. And we're looking forward to an awesome discussion. We'll wait a few moments while people trickle in, but if you are watching the replay, why don't you comment below and type hashtag replay, please, and let us know that you're here. So, Jeff, are you ready for this?
I'm so ready, so excited. It's going to be a great conversation, two, very relevant and important topics, to discuss. So I'm very excited.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just so glad to, take this opportunity to collab with you about this because this topic, like you said, is so relevant. The discussion is so needed. And we don't talk about it enough. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. So yeah, so why don't we jump right in? I'm gonna let you start, Jeff. I'm gonna let you start with your background. Jeff is a fellow author. So those of you who are coming in, please comment below, say hello, tell us where you're from. And we love to know who's watching us. But Jeff, why don't you start and tell us more about yourself?
Certainly. So good evening, everyone, or if you're going to be watching later, just welcome. My name is Jeff Shafer. I am originally from South Jersey. I now live in New York City with my wife and my 4-month-old son, who is just off camera. A little bit about my professional background is, so I went to Drexel University where I studied accounting. I'm a CPA. I worked as a CPA for a few years before going to law school. Just graduated law school, and I will be starting at a law firm next week, actually. And now, I can add, published author, to that mix as well. So just very excited to, be here and, be able to discuss, these things that, we're passionate about.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is fantastic. Jeff is a fellow author. We are fellow authors. You've accomplished a lot, law school and writing a book.
Thank you.
That is amazing. Yes. Well, hello, Teresa from New Jersey. Jeff, you know Teresa?
I do. Yes. That is my mother.
Oh, nice. Hi. Hello, yes. Mom. That is fantastic. Yeah. So we've got Linda Williams. That's my cousin out, and I believe she's in Atlanta. Coldwell Baker, associate banker. Jennifer Musser. Hello from Langhorne. I hope I said your name right. Hey. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we just love having you all come through here. Jeff just introduced himself. I'll introduce myself before we get into the discussion. My name is Shehara Wooten, and I am originally from Columbus, Ohio. So graduated in engineering, electrical and computer engineering, and then changed careers about 17 years ago. So just celebrated the anniversary of my career change. And I am like Jeff. I just published a book, and we were part of a program, and it feels good to have published a book. I think they say about 2% of people actually publish. I mean, people write books, but do they actually publish? So that's we're excited to be able to do that, and we're also excited to bring you guys along for this discussion on Black wealth and Black excellence. So. Yeah, that'll be awesome. So thank you guys for continuing to tell us where you're from. Yes, that's fantastic. Thanks, Teresa. Awesome. Okay, well, Jeff, why don't we talk about why we wrote our books?
Certainly. So, when I think about why I wrote Black Excellence, I have, one of my copies here, and
I wish I had mine.
It's, and in the, I don't know if you can really see that. can't really see that. That's fine. But in the dedication page, I basically, you know, speak to that a little bit. I say motivated by little Jeff, which is my son. So I felt that it was necessary to change the narrative because I feel that the narrative concerning Black people is inadequate. I believe that it's very limited and narrow. For instance, you know, when I was in college, I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia. I studied abroad in England. And when I studied abroad in England, my friends and I, we went to what we call soccer, what they call a football game. And while there, there were this couple that came up to us, and they were from out of the country as well. And they came up to me. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. But they asked me, they said two things to me. One, they said I looked like Will Smith. And two, they asked me if I was a rapper. And I thought that was odd that, you know, these people who don't know me, the very first thing they would ask me is if I was a rapper. And, you know, I told them no, but, you know, I wanted to get to the heart of the situation. Like, why would you ask me that? And it really comes down to the fact that the predominant narrative that they've seen in the media and just, you know, throughout life is one where, you know, they've only interacted with Black people, you know, as entertainers. They've only interacted with Black people as rappers and things of that nature. Now, don't get me wrong, Black people can rap and we can do it well, but that's not all we can do, you know, right? You know, there's so much more we can do. Any sphere of human endeavor, you know, we can excel in, and we have excelled in. So I felt that it was important to one, interview a number of people just to get get the wisdom from their experiences, and then be able to share that with, you know, other people, because I wanted to help change that narrative. And I felt that these stories are worthy of being told, and anyone can benefit from hearing them.
Absolutely. That's so powerful. So they thought you were Will Smith or a rapper or a basketball. I mean, that's just the typical stereotypes, you know, that people think, but we're more than that. We're not a monolith as a Black community, and we have multiple talents. And I love how you're highlighting the other folks. Like if kids could see more of, you know, if they could see that more, if they could see the executives, entrepreneurs, and things like that, see that more, then they would strive to be that. And I think I think your book is really going to help, you know, like you said, change that narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's my hope. It's about, you know, they say if you can see it, you can be it. And, you know, as my mom always told me, exposure creates expansion. So I wanted to, you know, use this book as an opportunity to, you know, expand the definition of what people see Black people in, the roles they see them in. And then particularly for young people, I want them to be able to dream big. You know, I want them to be able to, you know, like, it's great. Like when I was young, I wanted to be in the NBA, like a lot of my friends, you know, but that changed, you know, when I was exposed to other opportunities, you know. So like you can be a CEO, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be an engineer. It's limitless, you know. So I just felt it was important, you know, to share those stories. But I'm curious to hear about you, Shehara, and the reason why you wrote In the Meantime.
Yes. I think it's along similar lines, you know, and I think back, I just got to circle back to your book too, because I was listening to a podcast, and a little girl, she was 5 years old. She's an executive now and all of this. The podcast was Hello 7 with Rachel Rogers, but I can't remember the name of the guest. And she said that she was in a Catholic school, and the nun asked her at 6 or 7 years old, what does she want to be? And everybody was saying doctor, lawyer, teacher, engineer. And she raised her hand and said, I want to be the legal counsel at Coca-Cola. Something to that effect. And the teacher, the nun, was like, oh my. And she actually got in trouble for that. Can you believe that? Because so they went and talked to her mom, and they were just like, You know, I think it was her grandmother really, but they were just like, how, you know, she's just doing too much. Like if she would have just, her mom just said, if you would have just said you want to be an attorney, because her mom was like, what is that? What is the legal counsel for the, and she said, if you would have just said, you know, you want to be an attorney. So I just thought, like, wow, that is just a, that's interesting, you know, that somebody would try to stunt her vision. So, but she didn't let it, you know, she said she shook it off around her 30s, but I think there's things that happen to us as young people that do sometimes can stunt us. But then it sounds like you got exposed to things that could expand you and you were encouraged. And I think that's powerful. But yeah, let me hear about my book too. Like you said, so I wrote, the title of my book is called In the Meantime, Own Your Financial Narrative. And so, you know, as we were talking about, I'm an engineer by training. And so I ended up becoming an engineer. And because of that, I just started to see that, you know, that growing up or going through college, that and graduating, that we don't learn about financial education. We rarely learn about it. And so, so the book was really, the career change was really because I wanted to educate and provide financial education. But then also the book is the expansion of that. So I want to reach lots of people with the book and be able to do financial education, but also have empowering stories. As I've been, you know, in this career of, you know, financial planner and helping people, it became more evident to me that there is a gap. There is a racial wealth gap. You know, and working with various clients and just realizing that, you know, the net worth, you know, the net worth of Black wealth is like in 2016, it was measured at 17,000, whereas white wealth was measured at 171,000 at that time. And so it just bothered me. And then to hear that there's a 228-year wealth gap between Black and white wealth and Black families and white families. And then to see that the prosperity now is saying that by the time 2053 hits, wealth is going to go to zero. And that is just, it's just baffling to me. Like, you know, so I just said, well, what can I do? So this is an opportunity. Writing a book is an opportunity to get encourage people, you know, inspire people, talk about the power of community, create accountability, also educate people as well, so that we as a Black community, you know, we don't allow that statistic to ever come to pass. Because I believe that we can curb that statistic. You know, we've got 32 years before that happens, supposedly. I'm just under the premise that it's not going to happen. So how do we make that not happen? So this is just a part. There's a lot of people that can play that part, but this is the part that I can play. And so that was why I wrote it.
I love how you saw a problem and, you know, you decided to, you know, do something about it. I think it was Gandhi who said, you know, be the change that you want to see in the world. You know, you identified a problem. I mean, that's an issue that, you know, is near to my heart as well. So I just, you know, want to applaud you for, you know, making moves and even, you know, becoming a CFP and, you know, working with people and then using the book as like a means to extend that help and that knowledge. I think is fantastic.
Yes, because it's like, you know, some of those, like the CFPs, those designations, it just helps it gives me more knowledge, but then it helps to expand credibility too, because, you know, our people, they want to know that you know your stuff too. So they're like, we're not going to align with you just because, you know, and so that was just another way for me to eliminate, you know, that type of barrier too. But yeah, so it's super, it's been pivotal, you know, starting the firms, writing a book, publishing a book, and just getting it out there. So yeah.
And I think there's an important element that goes across both of our books, and that's this sort of notion of lifting as we climb. You know, so like as I worked at, like as I said, I worked as an accountant. Prior to law school, I was with an organization called NABA, National Association of Black Accountants, and the motto of NABA is lifting as we climb. And it's I feel that it's an imperative as we progress in our lives and our careers that we are actively working to bring other people, along with us. I feel that is an imperative. And one of the things that I noticed when I was interviewing people, the reason people were willing to give me the time of day is because that notion of lifting as we climb.
Absolutely. No, that's powerful because, and it's funny because I didn't, what was I going to say about that? Yeah. When you were talking about lifting as we climb, I didn't know NABA's motto was that. I didn't know that. But when I looked at my book cover, why don't we talk about our book covers? Because that's what even drew me. I saw, we were connected through our cohort and our author community. But then when you publish your book, I saw the title and then I saw the cover and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks really similar. Like that was part of the inspiration for my book cover as well. And we took it a little different direction, but it started with helping somebody up a mountain, and reaching out for somebody. And I was telling my graphic artist, it's all about lifting as we climb and helping somebody over something. And so, so that's awesome that the people that, you got to interview were willing to help. And then also that your book cover just aligned with that. And I think that's what we do too as a Black community. We want to lift people up as we climb. And I think that's just so powerful that you did that. But yeah, talk about your book cover and I'll talk about mine.
Yeah. So my book cover, you have the two people and you have the mountain. They're climbing up and helping each other up the mountain. So as I was working with the design team, what we were trying to get across with the book cover is that this notion of excellence, it's open, it's dependent upon the person, and you can contextualize it for yourself. So for instance, that's why we wanted to go with nature. There were some ideas initially about, people in suits and in the city. And I wasn't really interested in that because I thought it was sort of too cliche. And I didn't want to come across as if I was trying to tell people, what they should be aspiring to. So the idea of nature was one where people could, identify what their particular mountain was, that they're looking to overcome. And then, just distill the message that, you want to go. It's not doesn't have to be a solo adventure. You want to do it in community. You want to do it in groups. You want to, do it with each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. And that's similar to what my book, I wanted to do the lifting as we climb. And then because my book was talking about money, I don't have my book yet, guys. So I can't show the cover right now. I can't wait. Jeff, I'm like kind of envious of you because you got your book in hand, but I can't wait. Hopefully soon. But I was similar in that I wanted to portray the lifting as we climb concept as well. And then I went through some iterations. God gave me the vision and it was just like, yeah, why don't we show some steps and then let's take a step rung out. I don't know what the title of that is, but one of the steps is gone. So why don't we help somebody over those steps? And so that's what the actual book cover is showing. But then I was like, well, we don't want just steps. Why don't we have steps showing money? And so so that's what we did. And so we've got, someone pulling somebody over the steps, but then we have somebody like pulling somebody from the side, you know, up the side of the steps, and then there's two people at the very top that, you know, it you know, basically displays that they made it, so to speak. And so so it's just really powerful, you know, to see that visual of people helping each other as we go up this ladder, so to speak. So so yeah, so that is just really powerful. So yeah, so I just, yeah, that was the book cover, and that was exciting. But guys, please post your questions. Let us know what questions you have, and we would love to hear, you know, hear your questions as well. And if you are watching, I think on Facebook or LinkedIn, I may not see your comments right now. So not sure why, but we are on YouTube as well. So if you go into YouTube, those comments seem to be pulling in. But if you type your comments in, we'll see them later, and we'll direct them if you're on those other platforms. But please answer, ask us questions or put them in the thing. Thank you, Linda. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Yes.
Awesome. And Shehara, you know, I just wanted to say, so since we've discussed a little bit about how we decided on our various author covers, you mind talking a little bit about, you know, your broader author journey? You know, what was it like? Tell us, what was it like, you know, to write a book?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good question. So, yeah, you know, one of those things, it was one of those things that I always thought that, yeah, one day, you know, and back in, I think it was 2013, I was thinking back to like when I first thought about it. I remember seeing an advisor that had written a book, and I remember asking at the firm that I was at, can I write a book? I just was wondering. And they were like, yeah, you can. We just have to approve it, blah, 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 because there's all this compliance in our industry. But so it goes back a while, but it was really just a fleeting thought. And then one day I did decide to go and reach out to someone, a program that helps you write a book. And they came back to me with this pricing that was just, whoa, it was astronomical. So my mind just went back. Let me get back to work. Let me get back to, you know, helping people. I'll maybe one day. And so in 2019, I said, you know, I was actually at the end of 2018, I was doing some strategic planning with my my mastermind group of other financial planners. And I said, by the end of 2019, I'm going to write a book. And, you know, the end of 2019 came and I did not write a book, right? So that did not happen. And so then I remember one of my colleagues that was in the mastermind the next year, she said, in 2020, I'm going to write a book. And I was like, okay, great. And then I thought, man, I didn't write that book, you know? And so I saw her go through this process. She said she's going to do a program. And she ended up, you know, the program that we ended up going through, Creator Institute. And I remember in July of 2020, she was, you know, publishing, or she was getting, you know, getting donors and backers. And I was like, wow, this is really going somewhere, you know? So I reached out to her and said, you know, let's go ahead. I want to learn more about your program. It sounds like, you know, you're getting things done. And that's when I joined the program in October 2020. Prior to that, in the beginning of 2020, I spoke with my business coach, and she was just like, yeah, let's get the book done by the end of 2020. And I just didn't see it happening on my own like that. So that was the reason, the reason why or the process was first getting a community, getting a program. I needed structure. I needed, you know, some guidance. I didn't know what I didn't know about the whole book writing journey. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I reached out to an editor because my business coach said do that back in February 2020. And by December 2020, I, you know, by mid-year, July, I still didn't have anything. I didn't have enough to have a book. So that was the journey part of the journey was just getting started, finding a community, finding accountability and learning. But then also, I think COVID helped too, because Saturdays and Sundays were my days. I pretty much wrote every Saturday and Sunday. So because there was nothing happening really socially. So that really helped me. But that was really my process, is just being disciplined and consistent and moving forward with writing on a consistent basis through the program. But how about yourself, Jeff?
Wow. Yeah. So I can say amen to a lot of the things that you said. Yes. One thing, for me was that writing a book, put me directly outside of my comfort zone. And so it was like very much against what, how I'm used to doing things. So for instance, if you remember towards the beginning of the process, like before we actually have a book, it's just like very much in this idea stage, we were instructed to tell the world that we're writing a book. And that is like very much like against how I do things. I'm the type of guy where it's like, when I go public with it, I've already done it. Like it's already like a done deal, but like that made me very uncomfortable, because it made me uncomfortable because, I still had to do the work and it was uncertain. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was also good because, it's a form of accountability. You mentioned accountability. So, you have that aspect. But it was also the community aspect, was important, having, someone to guide you who had been there before, who had written books and, just knew the process, because like you said, you don't know what you don't know when you've never done it before. But I think that even I learned so much throughout the author journey, right? That I think is applicable in other areas of life. So like we were able to, become published authors because we had a guide and we had, structure, and we had consistent, we had consistent periods of time that we would write. I think that's the importance, like in, what you're talking about in the meantime, having, people, you're sharing your experiences. You're the guide, for the people, and your interviewees are the guide. And even in Black Excellence, it's like, look, these are people, you may want to accomplish something. You may want to be something. Here are some people who have accomplished some things, they're your guide in a sense, and they're like, showing you how they accomplish it. And I mean, that's how, we were able to, get these books done. So I feel like it's applicable, like in other areas.
Yeah. Like you said, like you said earlier, you see somebody doing it, then you want to emulate that. And, and so that's part of what the guide does. It's like the community, and it's just so much power in that. We experience a lot of community within the author cohorts we were a part of, but then we also, like, you have 20 people that you interviewed or that you're highlighting, and that is amazing to be inspired by those folks and to see that they're going to they're going to give us an example of something we might emulate, something they overcame, and now they're where they're at. And that's the same for my book. I interviewed quite a few people as well. I separate between the primary and the secondary interviews at about 6 or so primary interviews where I interview people directly, and then there was the other research type interviews, and I call it the super community. So, if you're presently in a community where you don't see these types of people, you don't see these entrepreneurs, these executives, these people doing major things. If you don't see that, then our books are going to provide you that. So you now have a network of people to tap into through our books. If you feel like you have no network, this is your network, to start with. And that's how I look at it. I call it the super community. And in one of my chapters, I talk about your net worth is tied to your network. And if you're just like, oh man, I don't even have it. Oh gosh. Okay. That's why my net worth is 0. But you have all these people that you can tap into now. And that's what, you come out of this book with a network of people. And it's so high level because you may not know them per se, but you can read their stories, you can follow them, you can see and watch and be inspired by them. So
absolutely. And it's, it's like reading a book is having a one-way conversation, where you're just reading, you're listening, to the other person. But like one of the things I like about these people, these interviewees, is like these are very accomplished people,
yeah,
but these are people, just like you and I, and these are people that you can look up and you can follow, you can reach out to on LinkedIn. These are people who are more, I'd say, more accessible than like LeBron James or Barack Obama or something like that, for instance. But like so you can engage, but you can learn so much just from listening to people's experiences. So I agree with you.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I do have, let me just say, I see a question coming in, and I know we did want our questions towards the end, but do you want to answer a question now, or do you want to wait till the end?
I'm happy. I'm happy to do either. I'm happy to do either.
I'm happy. Okay. Well, let's yeah, let's answer the question now, because I think it still ties into what we're talking about. And then any other questions that you guys have, please bring them in. I'm going to show the question. And from AK0089, if a reader were only able to take away one idea from each of your books, what would you want it to be?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you could go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So if a reader were only able to take away one idea from my book, I would say that the idea would be that you're capable, whoever you are, you're capable of more than you realize. It's possible, like that. Those sort of dreams, that scare you are possible. I mean, and I think about the various stories of, some of the people that I interviewed. For instance, Ken Frazier, who just stepped down, as retired as CEO of Merck, but he's still chairman of the board of Merck, $40 billion pharmaceutical company. You're talking about a gentleman who was born in 1954, the year of Brown v. Board of Education. So he was right when, they desegregated schools. He was raised, him and his siblings were raised by his single father with a third grade education. This is a man who literally, through his father's example and instruction and sheer will, ended up going to Harvard Law School, ended up becoming a partner in a major law firm, ended up becoming CEO of a major company. And he said, Jeff, if you want to know how I did it, it comes down to standards. He said you have to hold yourself to very high standards. When you hold yourself to high, the way he put it is, his father's standards, were higher than the standards of anyone else. So like, if he could meet his father's standards, of course he could meet the standards of, anyone else. So that just goes to show you that it is possible. It just really comes down to, what a person wants, and, if they're willing to, put in the work.
Absolutely. No, that's powerful. That is really powerful that his standards were linked to his dad's standards, and then his standards grew from that. And that's powerful. For me, I would say, if I could, one takeaway, let me go back to the question again. If we were able to do, to have one takeaway from each of our books, what would it be? And mine would be the power of taking action. The subtitle of my book is called Own Your Financial Narrative. So I intermingle the fact that, there's the racial wealth gap. I intermingle the history behind that. I start off talking about the Greenwood, Black Wall Street, and the desecration of that, and how so many people were murdered and killed from that massacre. And then even today, there's still a fight to get that, to get those reparations back for that repairing of that. And so we know that there's redlining. We know that there's historically, we've been excluded, as a Black community from various things. And so the one thing that I do still want to highlight, despite of all of the craziness that has happened to us historically and even still today, we still have we can still create a plot twist, so to speak. We can twist some things around. We can make sure that we are educated. We understand what our net worth is. We understand to focus on assets and reduce liabilities. We can create a legacy for generations to come with life insurance, and we can take control of our cash flow planning and our spending. Like we spend a lot as a community, right? So 1.2 trillion or so is the spending power of the Black community. And what if we were to take some of that 1.2 trillion and make it, instead of just spending power, investing power? So I talk about those types of things. So I think that's the takeaway, is like, what can we do in our own power? Obviously with God, we're all, Black community is very spiritual. And so, what can we do to take control of the narrative? What are we doing everything in our power to, despite the setbacks, despite the hindrances and the roadblocks, and, the steps being completely taken out, creating this crazy gap. That is the takeaway. What can you do to create a legacy for your family and generations to come? And that's the question to ask, like, what can I do? And that's the biggest takeaway for me. That, yeah. So.
That's awesome, man. One of the things that stood out to me when you, that statistic that you shared, 1.2 trillion, any community, any group of people who control 1.2 trillion in spending, those are kingmakers. You're determining, what businesses are surviving. You're determining, you can determine where investments go. That's a lot of power. So I'm so glad that you wrote this book to help, share that knowledge, so that we can, be more thoughtful about, who we're spending our money with, because that is, you vote with your dollars, so
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Yeah, we vote with our dollars. We have a lot of power. We have a lot of power. When you talk about the bag and you talk about money, that's when people start listening, right? That's when they start listening. It's so true. If there's people that are on the others platforms like LinkedIn watching us, or Facebook, and you're commenting, why don't you jump on over to the Money Decisions Show on YouTube, and then we could see your comment or your question. So please engage with us. We want to see what you guys have to say too. What do you guys think about all of this? What do you think about Black wealth, Black excellence, some of the things that we've been saying? What's resonating with you? What are you doing to change the narrative as well? We'd love to hear from you guys as well. So right now I don't seem to be able to see your comments on those other platforms. So this is the workaround for a moment. So thank you guys. And
Shehara, I'd be curious, if there was a story, from, your book that, you may want to share.
Yeah. You had shared about Ken Frazier. I don't know if there's more that you want to share, but I will allude to Jack Campbell. So I have several stories. They're just so, like, I could go on and on about the different stories, and there's some that I might even just bring them up throughout this because why hold back, right? So but Jack Campbell is somebody that I'm highlighting. She's a financial planner, and she started, what I liked about her story is she didn't go the traditional route where after high school you go straight to college. She decided to go straight into working in the banking industry. And then from there, she was linking up with some mentors and people that were helping her along the way as she was becoming a solid financial planner, a financial advisor. And she said that it wasn't until her 20s, no, it wasn't until her 40s, she actually got her degree. But she used her work experience. She also used her company. They paid for it. So she was in her 40s and she graduated with her degree debt free. So that's awesome too, right? So she did things a little differently. And she didn't let, that hold her back from the things that she wanted to do. But the thing that I thought of our conversation when I interviewed her that really stuck out is that she talked about the fact that she had a philanthropic mindset. And I don't know why that word, it's hard for me to roll off my tongue, but she was very big into philanthropy at a very young age. In her 20s, her church was like, we're going to, we need to buy a drum set. So she was able to, provide or give $1,000 towards that. And so it just started, like, she just started this as a way to build a legacy. And then in the process of that, I said, well, let me research, like, what, does the Black community give? What does that look like? But we're huge givers. The research is showing that we're huge givers. And I talk about that in our book, but I also talk about the fact that the philanthropic mindset, like, I just think about giving and charity, but I loved how she called it philanthropy. And it drew me into a mindset of wealth, because when I think of philanthropy, I think of Rockefeller and Carnegie and all these different people. But I just love that mindset shift of just calling yourself a philanthropist. It doesn't matter how much you give. It doesn't matter where you're at. But I loved her story and how she really highlighted that. But then on top of that, she talked about the fact that, you can be this at any point. But her goal is, to get to that 6-figure giving. So she has some goals that she's putting in there. So money is not just about, oh, I'm just gonna, get all the money I can for myself. But there's a section that I have where we talk about the power of community, the power of giving. Aside from building and saving and all that good stuff, we talk about giving. And so that is, I really liked her story and how inspiring that was to get us to think, like, how can we give more?
I love that change of mindset, to the philanthropy mindset. I think it's so important because I feel like otherwise it can be very easy to think about philanthropy as something that you do sometime in the future, once you meet some arbitrary target or arbitrary goal, where I think it's better to think about it like, what can I do now?
Yes.
How can I make an impact in, someone's life, right now? So
Absolutely. And that's what it did for me. I was like, oh, philanthropy. I just thought, oh yeah, that's something we do later on down the line. But I do talk about in my book, the donor advised fund. And so the title of that, like the unofficial title, is the Poor Man's Foundation. But it's another way for people to actually get in that mindset of giving and donating and creating that you can create your own personal foundation through a donor advised fund. And everything that comes out of that would go towards towards the charities that you care about. And so people can really start to get into that mindset, like right away. And I think that, like you said, I think that's really important. So that was just a huge highlight for me. And then I did bring up, I realized in my book, your book is called Black Excellence. I talk about Black excellence in my book. I realized that because there's a guy named Eric Campbell, and he brought it up. He brought up the topic of Black excellence. And he just said, like you, he said he grew up in a small town in Kentucky, 500 people. And everybody was just working hard. That's all they did is work hard. And he ended up, just when he thought about, like, well-to-do people. He thought about athletes and entertainment. And he was like, there's got to be more. And it wasn't until he read Black Enterprise that he actually started to see people that were not entertainers. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So we talked about that. Nothing wrong with being an entertainer, a singer, an athlete, all this. But it wasn't until he saw Black Enterprise, he was like, I want to be that. And at a very young age, in his 20s, he started a business with his choir fellows from the men's choir, and they started a business. And then he ended up, he said, you know what, I'm 30, I want to retire at 40. And he was just like, I got this tax advisor, but I think I need to tap into more. I need to learn more about, can the tax advisor help me build wealth? And then he challenged her a little bit more, like, help me build some wealth. And then he reached out to a financial planner and he said, what do I need to do to retire by 40? And so it was by 40 that he could retire, but he stayed working, and he was getting, he focused in on building his career. So maximizing the salary that he could get there, building his businesses, and then creating an exit strategy for himself. And so by 48, when it was like, hey, you know what, we're laying everybody off, he was just like, you know what, I can retire now. I'll take the severance and I'll just retire. So that's why he retired at 48, was because there was a severance package, and he was like, I don't want to move from where I'm at. I want my kids to stay here. So he created options for himself, And so Eric Coleman, it was a very powerful person to interview as well. And his goal is to create 250,000 Black millionaires. I love it.
There are so many things about that story that resonate with me. That is Black excellence. One thing is like the Black Enterprise thing. I grew up reading Black Enterprise as well, and I think things like that and publications like that are so important because it shows you a different course of action, something else that you can become. So do you remember back in the day, the commercials, I want to be like Mike,
Yes, I could be like Mike.
I wanted to be like Mike. All my friends wanted to be like Mike. In my book, I go like, I used to want to be like Mike. Now I want to be like Ken, as in Ken Frazier, being, a lawyer turned CEO. Because I've realized that, there's more opportunities available,
Absolutely.
So I just love that story that you shared.
Yeah, it was just so powerful to hear that. And then you talked about, so I'll go back to what I wanted to be when I was a kid. So the first thing I wanted to be was a teacher, because I saw teachers. That was the first thing I saw. And they were like, oh my gosh, just so empowering, inspiring. And I'm the oldest child. So anytime, we played school, I was the teacher and they were students, my two sisters. So, so it had to go that way. But then in high school, I, was good at math, and I decided to pursue engineering. But I will say middle school, I was thinking I might want to be a hairstylist. And so this story that I'm going to share is going to just challenge some people too, because I had a cousin tell me, like, after I was at a family reunion and I did one of my cousin's hair, and her hair was just looking so great, and she was just bouncing, and she was like, Shehara did it. I think I was 11 or 12. And I was so happy. And then my cousin said, you're not trying to be a hairstylist, are you? And I was like, oh, there must be something wrong with being a hairstylist. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. So, you know what? I'm good at math. I'm good at science in high school. And I decided, let me do that. And so I'm saying that to say, we do got to watch our words and what we say about people, because I'm looking at somebody's hairstylist and I'm like, wow, you guys are doing it. Like, you are making just as much money as an engineer, all these business owners, Ken Frazier, Eric Coleman, Jack Campbell. So it's really about what is your purpose and what do you enjoy? And exploring that, because like, you know, Malcolm Gladwell, he has a book out. You know, I forget what's that book called? You might remember, but it was the 10,000 hours. I can't hear you. What's it called?
Outliers.
Yeah. Is it Outliers? Yeah. And he talks about the 10,000 hours. Is that the book where he does that?
Yeah.
So if you enjoy something and you get your skill sets going, nobody can, you know, you can be whatever you want to be. I will say, you know, obviously working at corporate, you get the income and it feels a little comfortable. So we can't knock that. There's a place for that. But there's just so much power in pursuing what you love and doing it well and serving people well. So, but I have no regrets. But maybe in my 70s I'll become a hairstylist. Who knows? You know, we're not gonna limit it.
You know, nowadays you can have multiple careers. I mean, I'm in my second and third career as a attorney and author, and you know, you're on your multiple careers as well. So
absolutely.
But I wanted to ask, you know, I know that we're getting close to the 5 p.m. mark, you know, I wanted to be sure that I asked you this question.
Yeah.
You know, how has the writing process changed you?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think for me, I will say, and I forgot to mention that I don't like to write. Okay. So for all the people that don't like to write, you can still write a book. That's all, you know, that's the moral of that story. But
the engineer has spoken.
The engineer has spoken, right? I was good with college. I was good with not having to write papers. Yeah. So anyway, but you know, I would say, you know, you can do all things, right? You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. That's like one of my mantras. Even if it's something that you don't fully enjoy. But what I realized about myself, and I knew this, but I was able to confirm it through the writing process and through the publishing, is I love telling stories. And so it was just confirmed. I just love telling stories. And so that is what helped me to get through the whole writing process, because I love telling people about these people. And I love learning about these people. Like, I'm one of those people that I would love to do a documentary just on people based off of these old pictures. Like, let's find out what is their story, you know? So that's what I learned about myself, that I just love telling stories. And so, you know, why not make that a strength and use that, you know, as a strength? The fact that, you know, I enjoy doing that. So that was one of the biggest things I learned and confirmed about myself.
That's awesome. And to that point about you know, stories, like I also learned the importance and the power of stories. I didn't realize, I mean, they're so, you know, if you want to connect, you know, storytelling and stories are universal, you know.
Absolutely.
To share powerful messages and lessons, you know, through stories, through people's experiences. We can learn so much. I mean, it's so powerful that, you know, Jesus did it, you know, like he
yes.
parables, you know. But when you think about it, you know, some of the best communicators, you know, regardless of, you know, industry, if you think of the late Steve Jobs, you know, he was so effective at marketing because he used the power of storytelling. Barack Obama was able to you know, get elected twice, you know, because he was effective at storytelling. You know, so one of the things I learned, you know, through this writing process was you need to develop the ability to tell an effective story and to, you know, get a point across. It's so powerful when you can reach people that way, and you can, you know, share about your experiences.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so powerful. So it's funny how we both came out of it, you know, understanding that the effectiveness of that. So yeah, no, this has just been a great conversation. I want to put this up. Linda Williams, she said, never limit yourself. I became a CEO and earned my MBA after 60. Powerful. Isn't that powerful? Go ahead with that. Yes, Black excellence. excellence. We can do whatever. I remember 92, or I went to, when I used to live in Arizona, Frank Lloyd Wright. I visited his, it was like the School of Architecture, and it was a lot of houses on that property in Scottsdale area. And so the thing that stood out to me about that whole tour was that he was still working on plans and architecture at 92 when he passed. And it's just like, when you enjoy what you do, like it's not work. I mean, there's still going to be challenges, but you're just going to keep at it, So that is powerful. That is powerful. And we got another question here from Teresa. So, as authors, what is it that you want your audience that read your material to take away from your message? And I'll let you answer first.
Sure. So, I guess in addition to this sort of, don't underestimate your capability, that I said earlier, I would say that one of the other things that we talk about in Black Excellence is this notion of imposter syndrome. And I think that's something that is more prevalent than I realized. And, I talked to some seriously accomplished people. And I just have this notion or this thought that, once you have like a certain amount of experience under your belt, that, that's you're past that. But I spoke to Mr. Jay Johnson, who was Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, under the Obama administration. And he told me that when he got the call, to be the secretary, he had a moment where he had to ask himself, am I ready for this? And then ultimately the question and the answer was yes, but like that was very telling for me. It's like, look, you have, sometimes we have these internal conversations with ourselves where we may doubt ourselves, but we have to come back to this assurance, like, look, you're capable of more than you realize. And it's also good to be in positions where we challenge ourselves and we stretch ourselves, because again, I come back to the message of you're more capable than you realize. And that's what I want people and readers to take away from the book.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's powerful. That's powerful. I'm gonna put the question up again and I'll answer it too. And the biggest thing that I want people away with is that, it's all in the title for me, in the meantime. So in the meantime, I want you to take action. Yes, there is economic injustice. There's overdue reparations that we deserve and we should get. A lot of folks have been helped and we haven't, as a Black community, not like them. That's why we got a 228-year wealth gap. But in the meantime, let's own our financial narrative. Let's take some action. I have a money mastermind that I'm starting the second cohort for. And so I'm trying to get a group together, the second cohort together, so we can really start to talk about, change the narrative, be educated financially, create that community, create that accountability, and take it to the next level. So after people read the book, that's the goal, is to, be a part of a community, work with professionals, like financial planners, et cetera, to be able to take your story, take your narrative, own your financial story, and take it to the next level. So that's the goal. And so that we can create generational wealth. Yeah. So that's the big thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So oh my goodness, what a good conversation. I'm so glad. Any other comments? I know we've only got a few minutes left, but any other comments or questions? But I mean, this has been fun. This has been amazing. It really has. Hello, everybody. We appreciate you jumping on here. Yes.
I've really enjoyed myself. Great conversation. These types of conversations get me fired up, and ready to just go out here and affect change.
Absolutely. Same with me. I feel the same way. And it's just like, yeah, we got to keep moving forward. Like Teresa said, keep moving forward, keep it going, keep progressing. You know, there's nothing that can stop us with God on our side, right? So let's just keep moving, keep it moving. I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
So yeah, well, thank you guys. We really appreciate you being on here. So we've been putting up the book links. You probably won't be able to tap them, but if you go to Amazon, both Jeff and I are on Amazon. So we're on Barnes and Noble. I even saw my book on Apple Books. You probably have yours on that platform too. And I know for me, I think till next, like the 23rd, for me, I will be having my book available in the meantime until for 99 cents. The Kindle ebook is available for 99 cents. So, you know, before you jump off this call, why don't you grab a copy? 99 cents. What a low investment to get so much knowledge. And then the same, yeah, tell me about you. Jeff, how's your program working?
Same.
Yes.
Yeah, same.
Excellent. How long is the 99 cent promo? Is it the same date?
I think mine ends on the 22nd, the day before yours. But I'll just also add that I really believe that, you know, both of these topics, both of these conversations, both of these books, you know, complement each other really well. So, you know, for 99 cents each, I would just encourage, you know, people to make that investment.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who like the hardcover, that is available too. So please get the paperback. Yeah. And also, you know, we're looking to get this spread, the word spread out to a lot of people. So when you get an opportunity after you read it, give us an honest review too. That also helps with Apple to be able to give this information out to even more people. So we appreciate you all joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care now.
Take care.